Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
All right, let's ask AMD some questions here. This is the list that you have provided as comments to my recent YouTube video where I was asking you to ask some questions of AMD. So we picked out a few of those questions?
Yes, we have. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple questions to Chris James and Casey Kocher. So the first question is from the community is, does ATI have any plans to counter Nvidia's Fermi?
Actually, it's an interesting question. Most people in the industry would actually say that Fermi is really trying to counter what we've been doing. If you look, we've probably launched 20, 22 graphics cards that are DX11 based over the last several months. In fact, we pretty much have our whole lineup out there at this point, and they haven't shipped a single DirectX 11 card. So I would actually ask Nvidia, when are you going to finally counter what we've been up to for the last 6 months?
All right, I guess on that same note, what is the best ATI video card out there?
If you're looking for a single GPU solution, it would be our 5870. If you're looking for just the best overall, world's fastest graphics card kind of a conversation, then that would be our HD 5970.
Okay. And what's your favorite technology in the new series of graphics cards?
Well, really it's going to depend on the person and what their usage is of the graphics card. I would say that there's really two new technologies that make our current series unique. I would say DirectX 11 is the one that's probably going to be the most useful and get the most penetration with the largest audience. Obviously DirectX 11 came out with Windows 7. It's available on Vista now as well. But DirectX 11, just the visual quality that it brings, the additional performance capabilities where you have multi-threading, which we've had multi-threading with CPUs for years. Now we have with the GPU, so they can really talk in harmony and not have kind of weight state problems. So there's just a lot of things that are going to benefit the masses. But if you're somebody that's maybe a little bit more of a power user, whether you're a gamer, a digital media enthusiast, somebody that's really into productivity, and you're looking for something more, then the feature that's really going to change the game for you is really our Affinity technology. And hopefully you got a chance to see some of our videos talking about Affinity, because that's really a game changer. And I would say that's probably the thing that I'm most excited about.
Okay. So the next question from the community is, what's the difference between the 4800 and 5800 series? So you answered some of those, but
yeah, it's a good question. So both cards are going to be fantastic for DirectX 9, 10, 10.1 games. The performance is going to be a little stronger on the 5800 class than the 4800 class, but the 4800 class is still a tremendous value right now based on where it's priced. It's a very, very good value. Really, the difference is going to be DirectX 11 and Affinity. That's going to be the primary differences. Do you have anything to add to that, Chris?
No, I think that's a really good, lead in. I think the best way to differentiate the two in my mind, besides just Affinity and the performance, is what kind of, price per performance you're looking for. So, for the gamer out there, he wants to look at exactly what he's going to be playing. That should probably dictate, what kind of performance envelope he's looking at. And the best part about it is you've got a lot of horsepower from last year still available to go after those DX10 games. We have a massive amount of video quality and clarity with DX11 and a whole new series of video card to go against that. So the two offer something for everybody. So, regardless of what you're playing, regardless of what you want to do, if it's home theater PC or even just playback, you've got literally something for everybody with those two series. There's a lot of performance.
One other thing I would add too, with regards to the newer generation, power consumption is greatly improved with our 5800 series. So if you look at the previous generations, under load your card might be consuming 200 watts of power. At idle it might be consuming 90 watts of power. The current generation, you go from consuming 180 watts of power, something along that lines, to something like 27 watts of power at idle, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but we've literally cut it in about a third at idle. And I know a lot of times that's important to gamers, is just heat and noise and things like that. They don't mind it when they're playing a game, but certainly when you're not playing a game, those things are important. And so that would be a kind of a third thing that might be interesting for somebody. As Chris said, bang for the buck, 4800 series cards are probably going to offer the best value. However, the 5800 series cards are going to offer some new features that might be interesting too.
So on the 5800 series, are there any other ways to save on the rest of the system components because the lower wattage?
Well, I mean, your system has, if you take a look at your power supply and the thermals of the chassis,
Right.
you have a limited budget. There's
Right.
not just an excess amount of power. So if you're able to save power on the CPU or the GPU, you could potentially turn that over to either a second GPU if you wanted to do something like Crossfire, or maybe you could beef up your CPU. Maybe you could play around with some overclocking. So having that extra headroom back is good. I think some people are interested in reducing their power bills, maybe looking at their carbon footprint. Some people are certainly interested in
Does that really
trying to
add
take
up though?
responsibility.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you look at last night, I just built a brand new system with it's a home theater PC. It's got the ATI Radeon HD 5750. That's my graphics display, and I put a 65 watt Phenom quad core processor. At idle, both of those, actually at load, the graphics card is going to, I believe 65 watts, and if the PC's at 65 watt or the CPU's at 65 watts. Add in hard drives, other drives, stuff like that. At the, your max power consumption is going to be way below that 300 watt envelope. So, you don't need this massive power supply to, run this thing. Drop that down to idle, and you're using very little power compared to a lot of other desktop platforms. And, it's quiet. You can put it in your living room. At idle, you're not going to hear it. Even playing a movie, you're probably not going to hear it because the fan on the 5750 is so quiet. I actually have passive cooling on the CPU. It's, the wattage is so low. And so with, a good case, you're looking at a relatively inexpensive, especially, way to keep that power bill low. So if that's your objective, you can go, quiet or silent computing relatively easy. And even with our new line of 890 boards that are going to be hitting shelves pretty soon, that's going to come with some built-in graphics that's going to be pretty impressive for DVD playback and that sort of Blu-ray playback.
And whether you notice the difference on your power bill, you'll certainly notice the difference in the temperature in your office.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've definitely noticed is, as we move to the newer technologies of graphics cards, not only have I noticed that I'm getting more performance than I've ever gotten, but I'm hearing it less, and my room doesn't, end up 7 or 8 degrees warmer, 30 minutes after I started sitting down and playing around. So that would be the other thing I would say.
I think we have one last question here today. It's actually two questions. I'm going to pose it. The two questions are, what's the best AMD CPU for extreme PC gaming? And what's the best ATI gaming GPU? So I'm going to change that a little bit and say, you guys are building your dream game PC, irrespective of the cost. What would you guys build?
Well, I mean, I just built one with Phenom 2 965 Black Edition. Overclock it. I like to have a little bit of fun with that. I have a 5970, an HD 5970. Partly because I'm driving multiple Eyefinity displays and I wanted as much horsepower to do that as can be, but additionally, and I'll just tell you, part of the reason was the compute power. I think on the 5970 we're over 5 teraflops of compute power with the dual GPUs that are on that card. So for me, I'm a digital media enthusiast, and so I love to transcode videos and take it with me on my portable media devices, and anything that makes that operation faster, I'm in.
All right.
Like I said, I just got the new HTPC built, and for me, I like being a little bit lower on that envelope. I can actually play Dirt 2 awesome with a 965 and a 5770. And that thing is silky smooth. I don't want for any power on that. And I mean, I don't do folding, or I'm not, I don't do as much video as you, I think, Casey. So for me, I just want to get good FPS, get that DX11 graphics, and play some movies. So for me, that's the ticket right there.
Well, the other thing that's really cool about the 965 is based on where it's priced. It's quite reasonable, and if you're looking at a single panel and a low resolution, then there may be other faster options out on the market. But the minute you're starting to go to high resolution displays, and certainly when you add Eyefinity into the equation, the GPU becomes the bottleneck before the CPU. So why dump additional money into the CPU when it's just a really nice balanced story? You're going to get the most bang for your buck that way. So that's the other reason I like that particular processor for my own system.
Right on.
Is that it? How many questions did we get in the list ultimately? How many comments were in the thread? 400?
Wow.
380 something.
Wow. Just from 1
And
o'clock
that's
last
from
We
night.
could do this all weekend.
Yeah.
And we just went through 5 questions.
Did you have a question, Chris, that you'd like to ask? As long as you got us here.
I guess I would have asked the same question that you just asked. Like, what would you put in your system? I mean, there's, this constant evolution of hardware in combination with software. AMD's really competitive. Are you investing a lot in R&D to kind of be one step ahead of the game?
Well, we bought a graphics company for something like $5 billion, just really to address that because, our executives kind of saw the future, and the future was really around graphics. We had, at the time when we bought it, we already had some industry-leading CPUs, but they really realized that visual computing is really where things were headed. And also the GPU, where you're using the graphics card to handle the compute tasks. Like I said, 5 teraflops on the graphics card I'm using on a single graphics card. That's amazing. I think that's like 30 or some odd big deep blue supercomputers for back in the day. So it's just an amazing amount of horsepower. And so for tasks that tend to be more parallel in nature, like transcoding, the GPU is just an amazing way of handling that. And so a lot of the R&D that we're spending today is really designing around how do we look at the task that the computer has to process and decide, is it a CPU task, a GPU task? In the past, that's always been 3D goes to GPU and everything else goes to CPU.
Right.
Now we're really looking at it very intelligently and saying what things are going to run better on the GPU and what things are going to run better on the CPU. If you look at my 2 competitors, one of them really wants everything to run on the GPU because that's their core business. The other one wants everything to be x86 because that's their core business. We have great IP in both areas. We don't care. We want to make sure that it's done, in the best possible manner, so you're going to get the best experience, but also so we can do it the most efficiently from a power perspective.
So you mentioned teraflops. Teraflops doesn't resonate to at least my mother or my aunt. How does teraflops or the graphics card help the visual experience? So whether I'm going out to YouTube, whether I have local content, what are some ways that AMD has optimized around the visual experience?
So if you take a look at, I'll take a step back from just the teraflops itself. If you take a look at the 5870 card, which is one of our most popular cards right now, it has something like 1600 stream processors, which are basically like 1600 little cores. Each one of those cores is able to do a task. One of the things that we're able to do with DirectX 11 and Direct Compute, which came with DirectX 11, Direct Compute 11, is we can actually repurpose those shaders or those stream engines to do things like post-processing. So anybody that's familiar with post-processing knows that that's a way of basically throwing a compute engine at a screen, at a picture, and really cleaning it up and making it look better. You can do deinterlacing, you can do all kinds of corrections and cleanups. And if you're interested in seeing some of those type of demos, you can always go to our website, and we've got a variety of demos to show that. But that's another way, outside of just rendering 3D in a game, that we can use that compute power to improve the visual experience. Earlier we looked at a demonstration, Chris, of Adobe Flash, where you actually got to see how we're taking all that compute capability and cleaning up YouTube videos and making them look a lot better than they did originally. I don't know, does that answer your question?
You nailed it. Yep. So that's one example I could see my mother using. She goes out to YouTube. She can find pictures of her grandmother or her niece or whoever it may be, and actually see the cleanup. So.
And let's be honest, we're talking in this room a lot about teraflops. We're not going to talk that way to average consumers. We're just going to show her that we just made your picture look better, we made your video look better.
And that's what they care about.
That's what they care about.
Right.
And let's talk about let's make sure we're clear that we're talking about a great portable visual experience here too, because that's not just limited to our high-end desktop graphics. That the laptop that's sitting right on Chris's lap here, that is powered by AMD Vision technology. Same kinds of graphic technology we're bringing to the desktop customer, but putting it in a form factor that is really going to do wonders for that online video experience. So if you're watching Hulu in the airport, you're watching a video that you just shot of your kids and you're editing it. That's happening on your ultra thin, on your notebook, and you're no longer tethered or required to have a desktop to have an amazing visual experience. And AMD Vision technology is what's bringing that to you. We're combining the best of our chipsets, our graphics, and our CPU into these really very portable form factors.
Have you ever had 3 Chris's in the same room here at AMD? Until now?
We have.
I
Now
think
we
this
get-
is the first.
Yeah.
We could probably get 2 or 3 more. I mean, we
Well,
have several more Chris's we could add to
a
this if you need.
Chris,
Just-
a
Just
Chris
a little bit more
con?
confusion. We
Right.
can do that for
Chris
you,
Con,
Chris.
yeah, there
Did you have any other questions, Chris?
This Chris is good over here.
All right.
I just want to thank AMD for their time and support.
Thanks for
Thank
coming out,
Thank
Chris.
you.